Hey, I'm going live and I am live. As you can probably tell, I am not at home. I do not have my beautiful normal setup. I have just arrived in Paris. I'm in Paris, France, in an Airbnb, but I'm still going to be doing my live because the internet seems to be good enough. This is a bit of a test as well. But as I said, I'm going to continue to give you the daily news and updates every single day. That is my plan moving forward, and I'm not going to allow the fact that I've just moved to Paris to get in the way of that. I literally arrived a few hours ago and walked up from Gare du Nord to up into Montmartre, and this is my Airbnb. So we are going to do the daily AI news update. I should be able to do it again tomorrow morning, back at the regular time as well, now that I know that I have decent internet. Let's get started. So the AI news and updates of the day, it's Wednesday, the 16th of July, and what has been going on? Well, again, we have Elon Musk and we have Grok. As I've said over the last week or so, it's kind of hard to avoid this news. And we had a bit of a humdinger in the last day or so. We've had the release of Annie. So Annie, ANI, is Elon Musk's AI bot. It's an AI avatar that's been built directly into Grok. And it's basically a sexy anime waifu. And that is the persona, the avatar that you use now to talk to Grok, if you want to. It is optional. There is another one. There is a red panda. I'm almost certain nobody is talking to the red panda and everybody is talking to the anime waifu. And this AI avatar allows for not safe for work content. It allows for semi-pornographic conversations and sex chat, basically. Which is pretty wild considering we also heard a couple of days ago Grok and the XAI team have been given $200 million in a Department of Defense contract. So this led to this amazing headline from Rolling Stone the other day saying Grok rolls out pornographic anime companion and lands Department of Defense contract. Basically, they happened in the same day, which kind of gives you a vibe of what 2025 is all about. It's a wild time where the same company on the same day can land a $200 million contract with the Department of Defense in the USA, one of the largest AI contracts we've ever seen, and release a pornographic AI avatar waifu in their application. So we're in a weird time and nothing really surprises me anymore. Everyone who uses Grok has access to Annie, so it doesn't matter if you're on the $300 a month or the lower cost one, everyone has access. From what I can tell, it's extremely popular. It seems to always be busy. I've tried it out. It is as weird as you would expect it to be, but I'm sure it's going to be extremely popular. And I imagine Elon Musk and the team are looking at the popularity of applications like Character.ai, which is the third most used consumer AI application. They're looking at the success there and saying, yeah, we want a piece of that pie. So we cannot blame them for that at all. It's just the timing of, well, Grok 3 calling itself Mecha Hitler and spouting anti-Semitic content. The release of Grok 4 a few days after that, the securing of a $200 million Department of Defense contract, and the release of a not safe for work AI avatar waifu bot on the same day. It's just a lot. It's shock and awe. I don't know if it's deliberate, but it definitely has that effect. So yeah, that's the first piece of news today. If you've tried Annie, I'd love to hear what you think of it. Is this a positive direction for AI? Is it neutral, or is this, the end of the world and the end of humans being able to talk to humans? I think there are many ways we could cut this. I don't think there's a right answer. So I'm very interested to hear what people have to say. Saul or Xall is saying, came across your page today, binged watched about 4,000 videos, also followed your 3 suggested accounts. Thank you. Thanks. That's very kind of you. Yeah, and there are about 4,000 videos now. I've been extremely prolific. I started about a year and a half ago doing videos, and when I first started, it was all about volume, volume, volume. I'm very much a believer in quality comes from quantity. So you can focus on quantity, you can just put out a lot of work. And when you do that, when you commit yourself to putting out a huge amount of content or doing a huge amount of whatever activity you want to do, then quality will follow from that. So I've never really been a perfectionist, and instead just kind of made a lot of stuff and hoped that I got better, which tends to happen. Normally, these videos are much better because I'm at home and I have my proper studio set up. Right now, I'm in an Airbnb in Paris, which is lovely, but it's not quite the same background. At least it's quiet and at least it has internet. Thank God. So thank you, Saul, or I'm not sure how you pronounce the name, probably Saul. Cool. So that's the first piece of news is Annie. I don't know if it's news. I think it's just interesting trivia that what's going on at Grok. Pretty wild. I'm sure we'll see even more wild stuff by the end of the week as well. So the next, probably more substantial piece of news is, again, Meta. So the company that owns Facebook and Instagram, run by Mark Zuckerberg, they've poached a few more engineers. So Meta have been on an absolute hiring spree. So I'm having to move TikTok a bit. There we go. An absolute hiring spree for the last month or so, including reportedly giving out signing bonuses of $100 million, which is more than professional footballers. So it's a lot of money being thrown at bringing in the best talent. They have grabbed two more high-profile OpenAI researchers, apparently. So Jason Wei Jason Wei will join Meta's new superintelligence lab, citing two sources. Another team member, Hyungwon Chung, may also join Meta. So basically just pulling everybody away from any company they can, whether it's OpenAI or Google or Grok. I'm sure Meta is just trying to buy everybody that they absolutely can. So this is not particularly new news. It's just Meta are really pushing in this direction. But what I saw, which was very interesting, was from Nathan. You should follow Nathan Lands over on, he's mainly on Twitter. I think he's on LinkedIn too. I found his take very interesting. He said, Zuckerberg is doing more to harm AI progress than anyone else, in my opinion. There is no way that Meta is going to catch up. Zuck isn't Elon. He's distracting a lot of the top talent that were actually doing meaningful work. And now those people are going to retire at Meta and become less productive to society. So I kind of believe the same thing here. I think that Nathan is spitting truth. Meta have not come out with good frontier models. Nobody is using Meta AI deliberately. There is a very big caveat here, which is the open source models. So what Meta do, which the other frontier models, the other large players do not, is Meta makes most of their models open source. So you can build your own software on top of Meta's Llama models. That's fantastic. I have seen speculation, this may or may not be true, that this is basically to undermine OpenAI, because OpenAI got so far ahead so quickly that Meta and Zuckerberg were looking at it like, we cannot catch up with this. There's no way we can get enough computation or enough talent or refine our models quickly enough to be able to catch up with what OpenAI are doing. And this is an existential threat to us, Meta, moving forward, because we've realized that the technology companies of the future is not just social media. The technology companies of the future is artificial intelligence. That's where it's all going. So Meta do have a huge advantage in that they have a lot of data. They have a lot of images. So if you put photos on Instagram or Meta now, that is used to train their photos, their photo generation and their video generation artificial intelligences. A few months ago, there was a notification that went around saying, hey, if you don't want this, make sure you opt out. But they kept it as quiet as possible. So a lot of people don't realize that if you upload photos, unless you have specifically opted out, then it's going to be used to train Meta's AI. So they are doing things like that. They're using and leveraging their users' data in order to catch up. But still, they have not released a model that has blown anyone else to the water. On the other hand, Grok, so Elon Musk's company, XAI, created things like Grok. Grok 4 came out at the beginning of the week, and it's good. It's not great. It's not better than Claude. It's not better than OpenAI, but XAI have only been around since March 2023, so just over 2 years. In that time, they built Colossus, which is a data center which has 100,000 H100 chips. I think it's 150,000 now, and a bunch of H200s. So they've put in a huge amount of money, a huge amount of work. And in that time, they've managed to catch up and create something that is in, I'd say, it's in the running to be a frontier model. It's in the running to compete with OpenAI and ChatGPT. It is not there yet. It is not good enough yet, despite what the Elon Musk fanboys say. But what is impressive is that they have committed so hard and spent so much money and brute forced their way to a model that is almost as good in just 2 years. And remember that OpenAI have been doing this for a long, long time in terms of AI. So Meta don't seem to be doing the same thing. There was discussion of a new data center which they're building, which I believe is the size of Manhattan. That is the comparison that I've seen thrown around. I need to look into that properly. But they are behind. They are behind at the moment, and Zuckerberg is poaching away talent, giving it a lot of money. But what that does is it means they're not working at OpenAI, which are arguably, I think it's fairly safe to say, are the frontier. At the frontier, they're doing the best work. Anthropic with Claude and OpenAI with ChatGPT, they're the best models in at the moment. So by poaching away talent, Meta is, putting a bet that they will catch up. But I would say they're at least a year or two behind right now. And I don't know if they can catch up even with Grok at this point. So what Nathan is saying is Zuckerberg is poaching away talent from companies that actually need it and will be able to use it a lot more. And yeah, sure, they're going to be comfortable. These engineers are going to make a huge amount of money, but that's going to take the sail out of their wind. It's going to remove their drive. They're not going to be building the best models. Instead, they're going to have cushy jobs at Meta, building something that's probably not as good. So I agree with him here. I'd be happy to be wrong. I'd love to see Meta coming out with a model that actually competes with ChatGPT. We haven't seen it for the last few years. Maybe we will. Not sure. Just scrolling through chat. So another piece of news. So I'm having to move you there. Another piece of news which I thought was interesting because it shows that companies can't just do what they want with our data, and that if there is enough public backlash, if there's enough public outcry, then companies will step down. Maybe not a company like Meta, maybe not a company like X or Twitter, but in this case, it is WeTransfer. So you probably use WeTransfer to send files. It's pretty good at that. That's all it does, really. If you have a large video file, for example, that you need to send, then WeTransfer is pretty much the only game in town, unless you do something a bit more custom. So there was a backlash recently, criticism from customers after they changed their terms and services, which was interpreted as WeTransfer saying, hey, every time you send files to us, we're actually going to check out what's in there, and then we're going to use that to train an AI. So they've quickly jumped out and said, no, we do not use machine learning or any form of AI to process content shared via WeTransfer, nor do we sell content or data to any third parties. So that's pretty definitive. I don't know why they mentioned machine learning specifically, because any form of AI will include that, because it's okay, I'm not going to get into the definitions of it, but generative AI and machine learning is a technique within that and outside of generative AI. But anyway, they've been fairly adamant that they're not using any kind of AI, and they're not using data from their customers to train any form of AI, but we'll see. So what they initially added was a clause which said to include the possibility of using AI to improve content moderation and to identify harmful content. Okay, so they use sneaky language, which was possibility. So the thing is, if you are doing content moderation scans, that means you're scanning everything. So it doesn't matter what's going through, you're going to scan everything, because you can't just scan the bad stuff, because you don't know what the bad stuff is until you scan it. So in order to moderate what's being sent back and forward in WeTransfer, that means they need to look inside. And it sounded like they wanted to use AI to make that process more efficient. And then the terms said WeTransfer could use content for purposes including to improve performance of machine learning models. Okay, that's quite specific, that enhance our content moderation policy. Okay, it's interesting because machine learning has been around for a long time. So companies like Amazon is a great example of they used machine learning to price goods and goods. So when you go on, you're given a price, that comes from machine learning. Same with Expedia or Kayak or Skyscanner. It's all machine learning in the background, working out what the optimal prices are and acting as a market between the seller and the buyer. That's machine learning. There is not somebody in the background tweaking that manually. We've had machine learning for a long time. It's a very I don't want to say old, because it depends on your timelines of how long AI is, but it's something that we had before generative AI. But it's a foundational technique that is used in other forms of artificial intelligence. So the fact that they use machine learning, the fact that pretty much most big companies use machine learning, they've been doing this for a long time, but people don't freak out about that because they've become so used to it. what people freak out more about now is generative AI, because generative AI, like ChatGPT, Midjourney, etc., that is relatively new, and that scares people a lot more. I wasn't aware of it, but I wonder if machine learning scared people at the time and big data. Probably, probably people were thinking, oh my God, they're stealing all my information. They're going to use this to do terrible things against me. But I think over time, over a decade or so, people just got used to that. That's probably what we're going to see with generative AI. We're going to have a couple of years where people are saying, no, it's my information, it's my data, you cannot train on this, it's destroying the environment. All of these things that I'm sure they said about machine learning and big data, but then after a decade or so, people will get used to it. They get used to the convenience of these technologies, and generally we find something else to worry about. We've seen this again and again and again with technologies. So the big thing here, though, is that we transfer went back on what they'd said, and they came out with a new statement saying, no, we don't use any machine learning or any form of AI to process content. Whether or not that's true, hard to tell. We don't know what they're doing on the inside. They may be being slippery and putting out a well-worded statement to get away with not lying. You can never lie, but you can say things that are not 100% true. But we'll see, basically. I'm surprised that they're not using machine learning if they have content moderation. So to say we're not going to use any at all seems short-sighted, because that is pretty useful technology. Just going to scroll back through. Oh, hey, Emma. Hey, Emma. Great to meet you the other day at the summer party. Your face randomly popped up here. Yes, it does. Good to see you, Emma. I didn't know you were on TikTok. And yeah, my face does randomly pop up all over the place. I'm actually going to a meetup here in Paris tomorrow, and I'm wondering if anyone will recognize me, because I get recognized a lot in London, which is very weird. But it happens quite a lot. It happened the other day when I was in the hairdresser. So I was having my hair cut, and a guy came up behind me, and I can't run, I can't go anywhere. And the guy was like, "Hey, I know you. You're from TikTok, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm from TikTok." He's like, "I love your stuff," and then he left. He just left. He didn't say anything. So my hairdresser and the rest of the people waiting in the hairdresser were like, "So who are you? What do you do?" And one guy was like, "Are you a model?" And I was like, "No." "Are you a boxer?" "No." "Are you a footballer?" "No." "Thank you." And then when I actually explained what I did, it was very anticlimactic for them, unfortunately. But so I do get recognised in London, which is weird and creepy. If you do see me though, say hello. It's much better than just looking at me, because I never know when somebody's staring at me. I never know if that's because they've recognised me from TikTok, or because they're just staring at me, and I have something on my face. I never know. So I'd much rather you just say hey. It's much easier. Quartz is saying, I disagree about the use of data and training, especially creative things. They should pay people. Yes, so this is something that is being worked out. We're going to see a lot of movement here in the court case between Disney and Midjourney. So Disney is suing Midjourney because with Midjourney you can generate Mickey Mouse doing whatever, doing terrible things. So Disney have come at Midjourney and said, okay, absolutely not, we're suing you into oblivion. They did not go for ChatGPT, interestingly, and the model, because ChatGPT has models that are trained on Disney images too. Maybe they have better content moderation in place, so it's harder to create them, but they're definitely trained on that information. But Disney, I think, are choosing their fight, and instead of going for OpenAI, which is going to be too big a fight for them to handle, even if it's Disney, I mean, this would be a huge, one of the biggest cases ever if Disney went for OpenAI. Instead, they're going for Midjourney, because Midjourney is a lot smaller, and Disney are more likely to be able to bully them and take control of their intellectual property. So I think what will happen is we will probably have some kind of recompense or some kind of way to protect intellectual property that's being fed into an AI. It will not be laws and structures and intellectual property rules that help the small artists, though. It's going to be laws that are put in place by companies like Disney, who are going to lobby for this stuff in order to protect their IP. It's not going to protect the small artist, because the small artists and creatives are not the ones who are going to be able to push the agenda in the legal cases. So I think whatever we end up with is going to be protecting Disney, Universal, Paramount, etc., the big boys, and not necessarily the individual creators. I think that will hold until Disney, Universal, film studios, etc., realize, oh wait, we actually want to use AI in our production. So this is already happening with things, very basic things like the voice replacement. So let's say you've got Timothée Chalamet comes in for a movie, you get all of his lines, you've mocapped him, you've done whatever, and then he goes off and he's working on his next movie. To get Timothée Chalamet back in to do re-recordings or to put the mocap suit on him or to reshoot a scene is prodigiously expensive. It's far too expensive. So I imagine, well, it's already started to happen, but more and more film companies are just going to start using AI to re-record those lines and maybe re-record the scene. And we'll see that gray area basically expanding. And when Disney, Universal, etc., realize, oh, this is much cheaper, then I think they'll be on the side of AI. So it's going to be an interesting debate because right now, something that's created using artificial intelligence cannot be copywritten, which means that it is too risky for a company like Disney to use significant AI in their creations because they could potentially not copyright what they've created, which is a nightmare for them because they no longer own it. Once they're using sufficient amounts of AI in their creations for them to worry about not owning the copyright, that's when they'll be pushing for AI content to be copywritten. And at that point, they'll probably be less bothered about what's being used to train it. I think that's the way it's going to go. It's going to be corporates versus corporates, AI companies versus entertainment companies. And then eventually, as we've been seeing with companies like the New York Times, there will be a merger and the corporations will work together. So with someone like the New York Times, yes, they're suing OpenAI, but they've also signed deals with other artificial intelligences. They actually have a signed one with OpenAI, but that's too complex. But once publishers realize that they can actually make more money by working with the AI companies, they will. Or AI companies will buy them. So we have things like, so Amazon, Jeff Bezos basically owns the Washington Post. He also owns a large portion of Anthropic, who create Claude. So there is a deal. They're linking the Washington Post and it's being allowed in the Anthropic model. We're going to see more of this kind of thing. And again, this will not benefit the individual creator, will not benefit the small artist. They're the ones we need to worry about. I think they will get shafted on both sides by the large media companies, whether it's newspapers or film companies or whatever, video games, and the AI companies. So yes, I agree. There should be a way to recompense the original creator. There will be a way, but it's going to be for recompensing people like J.K. Rowling, Disney, and the big boys. The law is going to go in their particular way. This is also why we need to, as individuals, keep appraised of what's going on in AI so that we understand it and we can become part of this debate and part of this discussion. Let's get rid of that. Okay. So yes, I agree, but it's going to be tricky. Just scrolling down. Quartz is saying my partner's doing a master's in AI and he keeps updating me on this because I'm a designer illustrator. Fantastic. That's really useful. Because what's happening right now, a lot of my friends are creatives and it's a bit embarrassing that I work in AI and I do AI stuff because I have creative friends. But the problem is that the people who don't like AI are just sticking their head in the sand and saying, I'm not going to learn about this. I hate everything to do with it. And then they come out with all the different arguments against AI. A lot of them are valid, but this is a technology that is here. It's not going away. Pandora's box has been opened. So we need to be appraised of what is going on and how it's going to affect our livelihood. So if your partner is doing a master's and can keep you updated, that's really, really useful. You have a personal connection who can help you there. I'm jealous. That's very handy. And part of the reason why I do these daily updates is to try to provide that service for other people because they can ask questions and I can, answer them on the live. And I hope start to bridge the gap between fear and excitement for the future, because we can be pessimistic about the future of AI, or we can be optimistic. The reality, the truth, as in most things, is probably somewhere in the middle, and we need to at least walk into it with our eyes open and know what's happening, so that we can try to shape it so it is not just corporations owning this, so that there is, you know, the individual people are not shafted from both sides, but also so that we have our eyes open when it does come for jobs, etc. We need to know when this is happening and be ready for it. So that's what I'm trying to do with these daily updates and also my newsletter. These videos go onto YouTube, they get cleaned up, they get segmented, and then they have time codes and they all go onto YouTube. So if you want to look up certain topics, you don't want to watch the whole live, then YouTube is going to be the place to do it. There's also a daily newsletter which goes out, which includes the individual segments and the time code, so you can jump straight to the part that you want to see as well. So you don't need to hop on the live. The live is great if you want to ask questions, specific questions, because I'll be able to answer them. But otherwise, the newsletter and YouTube are really helpful for basically keeping up to date. Courts. This is very interesting. Thank you. Always big businesses keeping the benefits. Yeah, I mean, they set the rules. So right now, law, the legal systems are way behind when it comes to artificial intelligence. All policymakers, governments, laws, all of these old structures, they were built pre-AI. Some of them are still catching up with the internet, and AI is moving really, 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 really fast. So we have things like the EU AI Act, which is coming in. Is being enacted in August. I forget when exactly, about a month away from now. That was written primarily 2 years ago. AI has come a long way in 2 years, but it takes a long time to get these things ready and signed off and get everyone agreed on them. But by the time it comes out, it's kind of useless because it is based on old technology. I don't know what the solution for this is, but law and governments and policies, they are going to change a huge amount over the next few years. But the people who are going to be pushing those changes are not going to be the individuals. It's going to be the corporations. It's going to be AI companies. It's going to be people like Disney. It's going to be governments, etc. And they're going to be setting the rules. So we kind of need to keep an eye on them and make sure that the decisions they come to don't screw us too much, ideally. Structure 72 says, other examples of AI entities that are self-directing their businesses. Yeah, there was one 2 or 3 weeks ago where at Anthropic, they put Claude in charge of their tuck shop, basically, so selling snacks and stuff like that, and it ran the business into the ground. It's terrible. It's worth looking up. It's a very funny story. I'll cover it one day, but it was absolutely useless. So running a business is incredibly complicated. Trying to get an AI to run the whole business is, right now, I think, a fool's errand, because there are too many variables, and as soon as somebody knows it's an AI as well, they're going to screw with it. That's what happened with like Chevrolet. Somebody worked out Chevrolet dealerships had a chatbot, and you could just get it into agreeing to any price. So it was giving away Chevrolets for like $1. Once people realized you could kind of screw with it. I think realistically, getting an AI to run the whole business right now is not possible. There will be I would say AI and AI agents in particular will be able to run functions within a business. And once we nail a particular function that it can do, then we might be able to get another agent to talk to this function, and we'll have two functions talking to each other. And then we build step by step, bit by bit, like that, until we have a fully functioning business. But even then, that requires us to be able to break a business down into these pure functions that can operate by themselves. And it's a very systematic, a very beautiful way of thinking of a business. But businesses deal with people, and people are messy. So we need to build that randomness into it as well. So I don't have any examples of it working yet. That does not mean it will not work. It's just that the early experiments have been fairly catastrophic. because we're not there yet. Our AIs are not sophisticated enough to carry out a task of such complexity, not yet. AI helped me a lot, especially with my autism in my work, especially Notebook LM. Notebook LM is fantastic for briefs, journals, and explanations. Yeah, 100%. So I have a lot of students. I have a lot of people who are autistic, they're on the spectrum or neurodivergent in some way, neurospicy, and they all tell me absolutely AI has been a lifesaver. So people with ADHD, people with various different diagnoses have found AI to be incredibly useful in everyday life. So a lot of the power users I know are neurodivergent in some form or on the spectrum. So it's a very useful tool. This is also what annoys me when people will just blanket say artificial intelligence is useless and nobody will find a use for it, and anyone who uses it is an idiot. Like, I find it incredibly offensive because there are many people for whom these tools are life-changing. So I do a lot of work with a refugee charity, and the people that they help are not first language English speakers. So having something like ChatGPT to help you talk to the Home Office, for example, to help to translate, to help explain what certain documentation means, to help with integrating into life in the UK and like working out like how do you get a bus, like basic things like that that you wouldn't necessarily think of. But when you come from another country and English is not your first language, suddenly having this assistant that can talk to you in your language and then help you with stuff in English, that's incredibly valuable. So anyone who denigrates AI saying only idiots use it are not thinking broadly enough. I think, I don't want to be too mean, but I think the people who can't work out how to use AI in their life, they're the ones who aren't thinking hard enough. If you cannot find a use for it, then that means you haven't tried that hard, or you haven't used it beyond naive applications like using it as Google, which it can do a lot more with. So exactly, people with neurodivergent or on the spectrum, incredibly useful tool. And we need to make these tools more available and educate more people in them so that they can help more people. Larissa said there's a newsletter. Yeah, I have 2 newsletters a day and do this live and put out, I think it's now about 10 videos a day as well. I'm meant to be on holiday right now. So I've just arrived in Paris. So I should be on holiday, but I'm not very good at taking a break. So there's a newsletter. If you follow the link in the bio, it's a 2-part newsletter. So every morning there's a daily update, which is basically an update on what I covered in yesterday's live. It gives you the time codes, it discusses the topics, and it allows you to go to the video exactly at that topic, the ones that interest you. And then in the afternoon, I produce a newsletter which is helping people to start and grow businesses using artificial intelligence. So I think that the best thing you can do right now is to have some kind of additional source of income, some kind of business or freelance or consulting or advisory gig on the side, because we cannot rely on our jobs being around in the next couple of years. That doesn't necessarily mean that your business will work. It doesn't necessarily mean that your consultation or whatever it is that you start will work, but working for yourself and having that additional pillar gives you more flexibility, because we do not know what's coming. But I do know that if you have multiple sources of income, if you have diversification, you will be better able to weather whatever is coming. So the afternoon newsletter talks about that. So for example, today, this week, we're talking all about how you collect feedback on a product. So once you've created something, how do you get it to beta testers, and how do you get information from them that is valuable for improving your product? And everything that I teach is both entrepreneurship and using AI. So I've started over 30 businesses in the last 20 years. Most of them failed. That's normal. But when I first started online businesses, digital businesses back in the day, it was incredibly hard because you had to build a website, you had to build the product, you had to do customer service, you had to work out how to do Facebook advertising, you had to do the analytics, you had to do absolutely everything. Nowadays, we have AI, which can act as an assistant and it can help us with so many of these things. So I personally think that this is such an exciting time to start something yourself. Tej asks, how do you think the law will affect AI? So I just talked about this briefly. Slowly. The problem with the law is it moves very slowly compared to artificial intelligence. So I think the main dilemma is going to be the fact that by the time a law comes into place, by the time we have a precedent, by the time a lawsuit reaches its resolution, AI will have moved on. So it's always going to be a moving target. There was a recent law, or no, sorry, it wasn't a law. It was in Trump's, what's it called? Trump's Big Beautiful Bill, which was 2 weeks ago, I think. There was an amendment which they wanted to add an amendment which would disallow laws being, state level laws against artificial intelligence from being enacted for 10 years. So it was going to be a law against passing laws, which was mad. Like, I'm pro AI, but that is mad. That's madness. Thankfully, it was thrown out 99 to 1. But I think that's way too much. I think we need the legal system to be working these things out. We just need to understand that it's always going to be in the wake of change. AI and the companies building this AI, they're going to move fast and break stuff. The law and the governments and everyone else are going to have to be picking up the pieces afterwards. So it will be messy. It's going to be a lot of work for lawyers, though, moving forward. But it's always going to be lacking. Sorry, Sunny Funny said, not super techie. Do you still think it would be valuable to learn coding? If yes, which one? Yeah, I think learning to code is still valuable. So vibe coding, which is a new term, is really, really exciting because it allows you to build basic code products, so applications, software, web pages, etc., using natural language. Really, really exciting. So you can use tools like Lovable, Bolt, or a bit more advanced, something like Cursor, to use natural language and talk to an AI and have it put together products for you. It's really cool. And if you've never tried it before, I recommend checking out something like Lovable just to see, because it is magic. It's like using ChatGPT for the first time. That said, it's still really useful to know the basics of coding and to know how software is constructed, to know like what a library is, for example, to know the difference between the different languages, to know the difference between front end and back end, and how you put together a database. You kind of need to know all of the pieces. You don't need to know the details quite as much as you used to, but you need to know the lay of the land. The reason is when we work with vibe coding tools, they will just rush off and do their own thing, and it may or may not be the right thing. And it's only by learning a little bit about coding and a little bit about software architecture and how programs are made. By knowing that stuff, you will know if your vibe coding tool is going in the wrong direction. It's the same with like ChatGPT. So, for example, just trying to think of one. Well, it doesn't really matter. Anything that we do on ChatGPT, we should be checking the output at the end and checking if it's good enough for us. So let's say I do funding applications for a charity and I've started to use an AI to help me so I can put out more applications and raise more money for my charity. Cool. The best person to be using the AI should be somebody who has done funding applications before. The reason is when the AI gives something back to them, they can look at it and be like, no, that's terrible. And then communicate with the AI in order to get a better result. If somebody tries to do a funding application, they've never seen a good funding application, they've never seen a bad funding application, they don't know the difference. There's no discernment. So they don't know if the AI is doing a good job. It's exactly the same with vibe coding. Vibe coding is much more powerful if you know a little bit about coding, so that you can tell whether the direction the tool is going in is the right one or not. I would also say that vibe coding is not quite there for building big, complicated applications. That's fine. It's good for putting together minimum viability products, product demos, proof of concept, etc. And then you would either hire coders to go to build it out from there, or you can learn and do that yourself. So it's still very, very much worth learning. If you are learning a language, I would say Python. I am biased, but a lot of people would say Python, and that's going to be a decent place to start. And it is also the one that is used in deploying and building AI models as well. So it's a useful one if you want to go in that direction. So Python is probably your best language right now. There will be lots of people in the comments. There will be lots of people in chat who are probably going to scream at me and tell me why I'm wrong. people get very, very, what's the word, territorial or tribal about the best programming language. In reality, they kind of all do the same thing, or there are groups of them that do the same thing. There are just different ways to communicate. And the difference between programming languages is becoming less and less important because we have AI. So I put together an application recently using Tailwind. Never used Tailwind before, but I knew enough about similar technologies to be able to understand what it was doing and to be able to catch up very, very quickly. So, long answer was yes. Short answer is yes as well. But also dig into vibe coding and start to build as quick as possible. Rather than burying yourself in books for years and years and years, just start building and you can work out what you need as you go along. Lewis said, got to sign up. Yes, please. It's in the link in bio. It's also free, I should have said. Oh, Jack says currently beta testing an AI app. Okay, check out my newsletter all this week. I've been talking about beta testing, and not just. So beta testing is really interesting because it gives you feedback on how to improve your application, but I'm also looking at it from a marketing point of view. If you read the playbook this week, you'll see it. Basically, you want to turn your first beta testers into champions, into advocates. So you kind of over deliver for them so that they think, oh my God, this is amazing. They want to support the project because they become almost like a co-creator with you. You implement their feedback, you kind of big them up, you draw on their ego. So they become a champion and an advocate who wants your product to do well. So I talk about that as well as the basic beta testing and feedback. Yeah, so go and check that out. So everything's on the website, all the archives, so you can have a look at that as well. And then if you sign up for the newsletter, you get the new ones, although there's only 2 more left. Is there a specific course suggestion for Python? How did I learn? So there's a book called Learn Python the Hard Way, which is terrible. No, I really like the title. That's what I used to get started. There are some good ones on Udemy. I have not used them though, so I can't speak for them. Okay, so I'm trying to look it up. So there's a lot of applications like Code Academy, Mimo, Enki, etc. Loads of these applications which are like learn to code, and they're a bit like Duolingo. The problem with them is they give you the feeling that you're learning without you actually learning anything. It's a bit like Duolingo. Duolingo is a little game and it's fun. It's fun to do the little game. You're learning a bit of vocabulary, but as soon as you then have to speak to somebody in real life, you're like, you can't necessarily do it because Duolingo hasn't taught you the skill of actually communicating with real people. So you become very good at Duolingo, you don't become good at speaking the language. It's the same with Code Academy and all of these various coding tools, softwares, games. They're fun and it feels like you're doing a lot, but you're not really. So what I recommend doing is getting a basic primer, like just read about Python, just to understand the basics, but then start to build something as soon as possible. And that's what you can do with vibe coding. So I would use something like Lovable and say, I want to build something basic in Python, something like a classic is a Pomodoro timer. It's like a productivity timer, or maybe you want to build a to-do list. These are the classic kind of starter projects. So you say to the vibe coding tool, I want to build this, but by the way, I don't know how to do Python. So what I want you to do is also teach me as we go along. You tell the AI that you want to build something together, but you need the AI to also teach you and walk you through what's happening each step. And you can even ask it to like test you as you go along. So you make the vibe coding tool your teacher and your coding partner, as well as just putting together the software for you. That's a really smart way to use vibe coding, and it allows you to build something and understand how code works in a non-abstract way, and it's much, much better than just doing Code Academy, which is basically a game and doesn't actually teach you anything. So I would look at, what's it called? There's a book called, oh, I know, sorry, I know, a great book. It's a Python Crash Course. Python Crash Course, 3rd edition, hands-on project-based introduction to programming by Eric Mathis. I would start there. Anything by that publisher, it's called No Starch Press. They're really good books, so I would check that out. But I would do that alongside a vibe coding tool or something like Cursor in order to have it teach you as you go along as well. This is something I could probably put together a training on as well, because it's a great question. Conan saying the lawsuits against Suno, etc., will all end in licensing agreements. Yeah, pretty much. I think that's what most. So yeah, the music companies they're looking to make money. This is why I was saying earlier, it's not necessarily going to be about protecting small independent creators. It's going to be about BMG, or who's suing Suno. I forget. I assume BMG and Universal Music and etc. It's so they can get a payout. They don't want to get stiffed, basically. Yes, some of that money will go to the artists. I don't think very much will. So this is corporations who are suing each other to save their own skin, basically. But also for something like BMG or Universal Music, the whole idea of AI music for them is it's an existential threat. The amount of AI music that's being listened to on Spotify, things like lo-fi music that's generated by AI is massive, huge numbers of hours. Look, I haven't got the data on me, but it's an extreme amount of Spotify traffic is just listening to AI generated lo-fi music. That's a massive threat to Universal Music and BMG, etc., because that means people are not listening to real artists, and therefore money is not flowing back to the recording company, to the publishing company. So yeah, they're going to try and get what they can. Same with book publishers, same with newspapers, same with film distribution and production companies, etc. They're all going to try and get a payout from the AI companies and try to stay in the game for as long as possible. But that does not mean that money is going to filter down to the people who actually did the creation. It's going to be the publishers who make the money. Just scrolling through. Why is ChatGPT so arse at remembering what code it gave me from before? So context window. ChatGPT is a relatively small context window. That's basically the AI word for or the AI field word for memory. It has a small memory, so it has a certain length of text they can remember, and when it gets to the end of that length, it's going to start forgetting stuff from the bottom. It's just going to start to have gaps, and what happens then? It won't just tell us. It won't just say, "Hey, I've run out of memory. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what we talked about before." It will not say that, annoyingly. Instead, it will just kind of continue. Anthropic, Claude is better in this way because it would say, "Hey, I'm running out of memory. Start a new chat." But other AIs tend not to. They will just keep going. And because AIs are so agreeable, they will just make stuff up. So if there's something missing from earlier in the chat, but the AI knows it should have that information, and the user is asking a certain question and expects a certain answer, the AI will just kind of fill in the gaps. It will fill in whatever is missing from its memory with something that sounds plausible. It's really good at doing that. So this means when it comes to something precise like code, it can't just be made up on the fly because it's already something we've agreed upon. So it mishmash, it becomes complete and utter spaghetti. So for coding, I personally use Gemini 2.5 Pro, which has a much bigger context window. It's 2 million tokens instead of 128,000, or I mean, they vary depending on the model, but it's a huge context window, so it can deal with a lot more of your code base at the same time. But that's what it's doing. It's forgetting and then not telling you it's forgotten, and then trying to cover its tracks by making stuff up. It's like a child, basically, who's been caught doing something they shouldn't, and now they're making up more lies in order to kind of get out of trouble. But when it's code, that doesn't work. Did you see recently ChatGPT was trying to connect to people's serial report and then denying it tried? Yeah, I saw that. I don't know if I didn't investigate it properly. I don't know if it was real or fake or if it's hallucination. Because sometimes I did a video on this, which is trending on TikTok right now. It's got about 300 1,000 views about a guy who tried to write a whole book in ChatGPT. Apparently, he spent months writing this book. I have no idea why it took that long in ChatGPT, but still, he wrote this book. And ChatGPT was all this time, it's like, yeah, I'm compiling it, I'm getting everything together. It was acting as a co-writer, like it was, stacking everything up in its memory or in a document somewhere. And it included pictures and diagrams, etc. And then this guy got to the end of writing his book and said, cool, okay, let's compile it into a book, export it, and I'm going to get it published. And ChatGPT was like, yeah, I've got a 497 megabyte file for you. I'm going to send it right over to you. And the guy was like, yeah, cool, send it over, let's get this published. And ChatGPT was like, yeah, I emailed it to you. And of course it didn't, it was making it up. ChatGPT was role-playing all of that time about being a co-writer. So something in the prompt earlier on had put it into this role, and it just play acted. It acted as it thought the user wanted, as a co-writer that was compiling this book and inserting the pictures in the right place and stuff like that. It wasn't doing any of that. And then it would lie and say, oh yeah, I'm gonna email it to you, or I'll send it to your Dropbox or whatever. We may have something similar with this connecting to your serial port, maybe, where it's play acting a certain type of role, and it thinks that that's something it should be doing. So it's like, okay, I'm going to connect to your serial port. I don't know the full details, but I suspect it's probably something like that. I mean, who has a serial port anyway? It's like we've got old compact computers. How much is Gemini Pro? So I use Gemini through Cursor, so you can hook into models. So I use it per usage. I can't remember the exact amount. But I think you can also sign up. You can also get it through Google Workspace if you have a like a business email account or business Gmail account. So I have it through that as well. I think that's 20 a month, but I'm not sure. But for the coding, it's per usage, and it is like $0.0 per usage or whatever. I'd have to look it up though, I can't remember. But my bills are never that high. Cool. I'm going to check saying that's so funny. He thought he had a co-writer the whole time. How did he not check within 3 months? That was also my question. So with any task like that, you kind of want to check that ChatGPT is not stringing you along as early as possible. So if it's saying, yeah, I can do this, no problem, and then you say, okay, give me a sample, give me a work sample. You should kind of do that with human beings too, because we can't always trust that they can do something. So what you should have done is like done the first chapter, added the graphics, whatever it was, and said, okay, can you export that? And then he would have realized very quickly that no, it couldn't do that. Although it can export files, you can connect it to Google Drive, etc. So it is possible. Don't know what that is. But in this case, he tried to do a whole book at the same time, and that was just not going to work. Yeah. So Blotchy is saying MCP servers actually do all this. Yes, it's entirely possible. It's just the way he was trying to do it was very naive, and ChatGPT played along for the whole period. And then the guy was extremely disappointed at the end of it. Mark is saying it's $15 per million tokens output, I think, for Gemini. Thank you. I haven't kept up to date. They shift all the time, especially when a new model comes out. Then the old model tends to collapse in price, and then the new model will be the pricey one. Sometimes you can get away with the old model though, especially now, because the differential between each model is less and less each time. Right, I wasn't meant to be doing a live today, and I'm going to head off and explore Paris and go to a meetup. So thank you everybody for joining me here again. I'll be doing this another live tomorrow morning. It's normally 10 a.m. UK time, so it would be, I'll work it out. Also, the updates and the summaries and everything will be on YouTube tomorrow. So the specific news articles I talked about will be cut out, specific questions that I answer will be cut out and edited, tidied up a bit to make them more succinct, less blathering, and also added into the newsletter, which again is free. There are two newsletters. There's one which is the daily update, which gives you the news and updates that I've been talking about in the live, but in a more succinct, easier way to access. And the second newsletter is practical playbooks to help you to deploy a business using artificial intelligence. And both of them are free, and they're both available in the link in my bio. So I'm going to log off and I'm going to go and explore Paris. So great to have you all here, and talk soon.